What if I told you I knew what Liza has been scheming these past 10 years? The last dive is one of the most fascinating concepts in Made in Abyss. It is said that many attempt this one-way trek to the bottom of the abyss in order to gain eternal life. But could it be that Liza's journey was instead a means to save someone else? In chapter 16 of the manga, we learn that Liza left Riko behind in order to keep her safe from old enemies that might want to target her. But given that we know we shouldn't take Liza's word at face value, could there be another reason? You see, though Riko has cheated death on innumerable occasions, I believe there is one unavoidable peril that will finally do her in. That is, unless Liza's plan proves successful. But in order to understand this peril, and in turn see what Liza could have been up to, we have to first understand the relic that started it all. The Curse Warding Box is one of the most mysterious relics in the series, given that its abilities and mechanics have not been fully fleshed out. One such example stems from the fact that this device has the ability to reanimate any living creature for a limited amount of time, but for some unknown reason, allowed Rico to live several years beyond the survival expectancy of the box. Having said that, assuming Ozen's question regarding how long Rico had to live was legitimate and not a provocation, we have to wonder if Rico's life expectancy was affected at all. What we do know, however, was that Riko was not immune from the relic's side effects, as evidenced by her attempts to crawl to the bottom of the abyss as a newborn. So if this particular tendency shared by all reanimated creatures affects Riko, who's to say she doesn't have a truncated lifespan? Though this assumption is nothing more than conjecture, it is interesting to note that in addition to having been reborn with the help of a relic, Riko's soul has since been confirmed as peculiar, with Fapta stating that it is different, and wonders about its origins. This, at the very least, confirms that Riko's soul, or life insignia, came from an unorthodox place in relation to her body. This leads me to believe that the peculiarity regarding Riko's soul had to have been the result of the Curse Warding Box's use. I don't just say this because there are no soul-altering events present in Riko's life prior to Fapta's revelation in chapter 55.5, but rather because of what Nanachi and Mitty discussed in chapter 23 when referencing the abyssal faith. According to Nanachi, when an individual dies within the abyss, their soul goes to the bottom of the abyss where it changes form and goes to an individual who wished for life. Now, given that Riko was stillborn, we can assume her soul left her body and went to the bottom of the abyss before the Curse Warding Box revived her. We could assume then that once Riko was revived in the box, she either gained a foreign soul or was given a copy of her original soul, similar to how Mitty's soul was duplicated. Since there's no compelling evidence to assume either scenario, I won't bother speculating. Despite this, the evidence firmly suggests that Riko, not unlike every creature that had been revived with the Curse Warding Box, does not have her original soul, and as such, has a different life expectancy than she originally did. This reality regarding both Riko's soul and precarious future leads me to believe that as soon as Liza reached the same conclusions, she embarked on her last dive to the bottom of the abyss to recover Riko's soul, and later return it to her before the Curse Warding Box's effect wore off. But given what we know about the Curse of the Abyss, we can only assume Liza never intended to return Riko's soul herself, which leads me to believe she intended to use the help of someone who wouldn't be affected by the Curse of the Abyss. Though Reg's origins are currently unknown, we do know he's able to ascend past the final boundary, which means there is a high likelihood he traveled to the bottom of the abyss with Liza, given the fact that Reg was shown to know Liza with a high degree of familiarity. So whether or not Reg is a true resident of the bottom of the abyss is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, Reg had gone to the bottom with Liza and later told Fapta about a favor he needed to do. Given this fact, plus the fact that Liza most likely embarked on her last dive to recover Riko's soul, we can only assume Reg was carrying Riko's soul. But how, or where? During Riko's dive with Nat in the first layer, Riko is shown finding a blue pendant near Reg's unconscious body. Though this item is yet to be referenced in the current timeline, what we do know is that at some point in the past, Reg was holding it after having finished Liza's symbolic grave. What's interesting about this item, however, is the fact that it bears the same symbol as the mysterious object found in the joint delving site from the second layer. Despite these being the few facts we know about the item, Made in Abyss author Tsukushi stated that the item was important and needed to be shown in the anime. Given this cryptic fact about the item, I believe it carries Rico's original soul, and given the fact that no white whistle nor soul-seeing entity has ever seen the item, we can assume it will make a return at an opportune moment right before Rico needs it. But does this mean that if used, the Rico we currently know would cease to exist? The short answer is no. In Chapter 63, we learn that Nishigora is a vessel for multiple souls, and in Chapter 35, we see Reg allude to the possibility that he may also be a vessel for Liza and Girl-type soul, although this detail is still a bit dubious. But in short, Riko could still probably have multiple souls, while still retaining her original personality. Given what little information we know about Liza, we can only conclude that at the very least, her tenacity, ferocity, and spirit of adventure could only be rivaled by her love of Rico. Could it be that Liza's motivation to abandon Rico was to search immortality? Or maybe Liza's last dive was an act of love to save her only daughter, who was cursed, after being made an abyss. But what do y'all think? I'd love to see your guys' theories.